Welcome back. Let's read some more before I'm getting too tired and sleepy because it's always very hot in my apartment. The sun is shining, so that makes me very sleepy. Because it's so hot always and hot in the night. So I like to read this again. I read it a long time, like 1 year ago. But now we have this war in Ukraine. But this main battle tank is not in Ukraine, not yet. Maybe in the future.
Leopard 2. This article may be too long to read and navigate comfortably. When this tag was added, its readable prose size was 16,000 words. Consider splitting content into sub-articles, condensing it, or adding subheadings. Please discuss this issue on the article's talk page. December 2023. The Leopard 2 is a third-generation German main battle tank, MBT. Developed by Krauss-Maffei in the 1970s, the tank entered service in 1979 and replaced the earlier Leopard 1 as the main battle tank of the West German Army. Various iterations of the Leopard 2 continue to be operated by the armed forces of Germany, as well as 13 other European countries, and several non-European countries, including Canada, Chile, Indonesia, and Singapore. Some operating countries have licensed the Leopard 2 design for local production and domestic development. There are two main development tranches of the Leopard 2. The first encompasses tanks produced up to the Leopard 2A4 standard and are characterized by their vertically faced turret armor. The second tranche, from Leopard 2A5 onwards, has an angled, arrow-shaped, turret applique armor, together with other improvements. The main armament of all Leopard 2 tanks is a smoothbore 120mm cannon made by Rheinmetall. This is operated with a digital fire control system, laser rangefinder, and advanced night vision and sighting equipment. The tank is powered by a V12 twin-turbo diesel engine made by MTU Friedrich Schaeffel. In the 1990s, the Leopard 2 was used by the German Army on peacekeeping operations in Kosovo. In the 2000s, Dutch, Danish and Canadian forces deployed their Leopard 2 tanks in the war in Afghanistan as part of their contribution to the International Security Assistance Force. In the 2010s, Turkish Leopard 2 tanks saw action in Syria. In 2023-24, Ukrainian Leopard 2 tanks are seeing action in the Russo-Ukrainian War. History, edit. Development, edit. Even as the Leopard 1 was just entering service, the West German military was interested in producing an improved tank in the next decade. This resulted in the start of the MBT-70 development in cooperation with the United States beginning in 1963. However, already in 1967 it became questionable whether the MBT-70 would enter service at any time in the foreseeable future. Therefore, the West German government issued the order to research future upgrade options for the Leopard 1 to the German company Porsche in 1967. This study was named Vergoldete Leopard, Gilded Leopard, and focused on incorporating advanced technology into the Leopard design. The projected upgrades added an autoloader, a coaxial autocannon and an independent commander's periscope. The anti-air machine gun could be operated from inside the vehicle and a TV surveillance camera was mounted on an extendable mast. The shape of the turret and hull was optimized using cast steel armor, while the suspension, transmission, and engine exhaust vents were improved. Prototype development, edit. Following the end of the Gilded Leopard study in 1967, the West German government decided to focus on the Experimentalentwicklung, experimental development, in a feasibility study and to develop new components for upgrading the Leopard 1 and for use on a future main battle tank program. At first 25 million DM were invested, but after the industry came to the conclusion that with such a low budget the development of the two projected testbeds was not possible, a total of 30 to 32 million DM was invested. The experimental development was contracted to the company Krauss Mafia, but with the obligation to cooperate with Porsche for the development of the chassis and with Women for the development of the turret. Two prototypes with different components were built with the aim of improving the conception of Leopard 1 in such a way that it would match the firepower requirements of the MBT-70. A high first hit probability at ranges of 2,000 meters, 6,600 feet, and the ability to accurately engage targets on the move using a computerized fire control system were the main goals of the experimental development. The resulting vehicles were nicknamed Keiler, Tusker. Two prototypes, ET-01 and ET-02, of the Keiler were built in 1969 and 1970, both of them being powered by the MB-872 engine. The MBT-70 was a revolutionary design, but after large cost overruns and technological problems, Germany withdrew from the project in 1969. After unsuccessful attempts at saving the MBT-70 by conceptual changes in order to eliminate the biggest issue, the driver being seated in the turret, it became clear in late 1969 that Germany would stop the binational development. The Assistant Secretary of the Military Procurement Division of the German Ministry of Defense suggested reusing as many technologies developed for the MBT-70 as possible in a further program, which was nicknamed Eber, due to his being named Eberhard. The Eber used a modified MBT-70 turret and hull, with the driver being seated in the hull. Only a wooden mock-up was made. 1 year later, a choice was made to continue the development based on the earlier Keiler project of the late 1960s, instead of finishing the development of the Eber. In 1971, the name of the design was determined as Leopard 2 with the original Leopard retroactively becoming the Leopard 1, and Paul Werner Krapp became the project officer of the Leopard 2 program. Originally two versions were projected, the gun-armed Leopard 2K and the Leopard 2FK, which would be armed with the XM150 gun forward/launcher weapon of the MBT-70. In 1971, 17 prototypes were ordered but only 16 hulls were built as the production of hull PT-12 was cancelled. 10 were ordered initially before another 7 were ordered. The 17 turrets were designated T1 to T17, and the hulls were designated PT1 to PT11 and PT13 to PT17. To test a larger number of components and concepts, each prototype was fitted with components not found on the other prototypes. 10 of the turrets were equipped with 105 mm, 4.1 in, smoothbore guns and the other 7 prototypes were equipped with a 120 mm, 4.7 in, smoothbore gun. Hulls PT11 and PT17 were fitted with a high-drop pneumatic suspension based on the MBT-70 design. The running gears of these two hulls had only 6 road wheels. Different types of auxiliary power units, APUs, were mounted in the prototypes. All turrets were equipped with a machine gun for air defense, except the turret mounted on PT11, where a 20 mm, 0.79 in, remotely operated autocannon was mounted. With the exception of hulls PT07, PT09, PT15, and PT17, All prototypes used the MB873 engine. The road wheels were taken from the MBT-70 and the return rollers from the Leopard 1. The prototypes were designed with a projected weight of MLC-50, which equals approximately 47.5 tons, 46.7 long tons, 52.4 short tons. The welded turret utilized spaced armor formed by two steel plates. The prototypes were equipped with an EMS-12 optical rangefinder and fire control system, which later was adopted on the Leopard 1A4. In mid-1973 a new turret was designed by Women saving 1.5 tons, 1.7 short tons, in weight. It was nicknamed the Spitzmore's Turn, Shrew turret, due to the highly sloped front. This design was only possible with the new EMS-13 optical rangefinder, which required a base length of only 350 mm, 14 in, instead of the previous 1720 mm, 68 in. Based on experiences in the Yom Kippur War, a higher level of protection than the prototype's heavily sloped spaced armor was demanded in late 1973 and the Spitzmore's Turn was never produced. The weight limit was increased from MLC-50 to MLC-60, which equals approximately 55 tons, 54 long tons, 61 short tons. The T-14 turret was modified to test a new armor configuration, taking on a blockier-looking appearance as a result of using vertical modules of spaced multilayer armor. It was also used to test the new EMS-13 optical rangefinder. The modified T-14 turret was designated T-14 Mod, and was fitted with a fully electric turret drive and stabilization system, which was developed jointly by General Electric and AEG Telefunken. American evaluation of Leopard 2AV and XM-1 Abrams, edit. In July 1973, German Federal Minister of Defense Georg Leber and his U.S. counterpart James R. Schlesinger agreed upon a higher degree of standardization in main battle tanks being favorable to NATO. By integrating components already fully developed by German companies for the Leopard 2, the costs of the XM-1 Abrams, U.S. prototype tank developed after the MBT-70, could be reduced. A German commission was sent to the U.S. to evaluate the harmonization of components between the XM-1 and Leopard 2. However, under American law it was not possible for a public bidder to interfere in a procurement tender after a contract with intention of profits and deadline was awarded to private sector companies. As a result, the modification of the Leopard 2 prototypes in order to meet the U.S. Army requirements was investigated. Following a number of further talks, a Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, was signed on the 11th of December, 1974 between Germany and the U.S., which declared that a modified version of the Leopard 2 should be trialed by the U.S. against their XM-1 prototypes, after the Americans had bought and investigated prototype PT-07 in 1973. The MOU obliged the Federal Republic of Germany to send a complete prototype, a hull, a vehicle for ballistic tests and a number of special ballistic parts to the U.S., where they would be put through U.S. testing procedures for no additional costs. The Leopard 2AV, austere version, was based on the experiences of the previous Leopard 2 development. It was created in order to meet the U.S. requirements and the latest protection requirements of the German mod. The T-14 mod turret was used as the base for the Leopard 2 AVS turret, but meeting the required level of protection for the hull required several attempts until the final ballistic trials on 23 to the 26th of June, 1976. Following the US preference of laser rangefinders, the turret of prototype PT-19 was fitted with a laser rangefinder developed together with the American company Hughes. In comparison with the earlier Leopard 2 prototypes, The fire control system was simplified by replacing the EMS-12 optical rangefinder and removing the crosswind sensor, the air pressure and temperature sensors, the powder temperature sensor, the PRR-12 commander sight with IR searchlight, the short-range grenade launcher for use against infantry, the retractable searchlight, the spotlight, the retractable passive night vision sight, the APU and the mechanical loading assistant. Due to the design and production of the Leopard 2 AV taking more time than expected, the shipment to the US and the US evaluation was delayed. It was not possible to test the Leopard 2 AV before the 1st of September, 1976. Despite the German wish that the Leopard 2 AV and the XM1 prototypes would be evaluated at the same time, the US Army decided not to wait for the Leopard 2 AV and tested the XM1 prototypes from Chrysler and General Motors beforehand. 2 new prototype hulls and 3 turrets were shipped to the US, PT-20 mounting a 105mm, 4.1 in, rifled L7 gun and a Hughes fire control system. PT-19 with the same fire control system but able to swap out the gun for the 120mm, 4.7 in, Rheinmetall smoothbore gun, and the PT-21 fitted with the Krupp Atlas electronic EMS-13 fire control system and the 120mm, 4.7 in, Rheinmetall gun. The Leopard 2 AV fully met the US requirements. A study made by the American FMC Corporation showed that it was possible to produce the Leopard 2 AV under license in America without exceeding the cost limits set by the US Army. Before the trials were finished, it was decided that instead of the US Army possibly adopting the Leopard 2 AV, the focus was shifted to the possibilities of common components between the two tanks. FMC, after having acquired the licenses for the production of the Leopard 2 AV, decided not to submit a technical proposal, as they saw little to no chance for the US Army adopting a vehicle not developed in the US. The US Army evaluation showed that on the XM1 a larger portion of the tank's surface was covered by special armor, composite armor arrays, than on the Leopard 2 AV. Differences in armor protection were attributed to the different perceptions of the expected threats and the haste in which the Leopard 2 AV was designed to accommodate special armor. On mobility trials the Leopard 2 AV performed equal to better than the XM1 prototypes. The AGT 1500 turbine engine proved to consume about 50% more fuel and the dial tracks had a higher endurance, while the tracks used on the XM1 prototypes failed to meet the Army's requirements. The heat signature of the MTU diesel engine was much lower. The fire control system and the sights of the Leopard 2 were considered to be better and the 120mm, 4.7 in, gun proved to be superior. The projected production costs for one XM1 tank were US $728,000 in 1976, and the costs for one Leopard 2 AV were US $56,000 higher. After the American evaluation of the Leopard 2 AV and the US Army's decision to opt for the XM1 Abrams, both American and German sources blamed the other side. US Army test officials discovered that the PT-19 Leopard 2 AV prototype used for mobility trials did not contain special armor. In Germany, the test conditions were criticized for being unrealistic and favoring the XM1. Instead of using actual performance data, the calculated hypothetical acceleration was used. The XM1 was found to have a slightly higher rate of fire despite having internal layouts similar to the Leopard 2 AV because the XM1 prototypes were manned by professional crews, while the Leopard 2 AV had to be manned by conscripts in order to prove that the Leopard 2 AV was not too complicated. Firing on the move was demonstrated on flat tracks, which nullified the better stabilization systems of the Leopard 2 AV. Germany later withdrew its tank from consideration. Series production, edit. The decision to put the Leopard 2 tank in production for the German army was made after a study was undertaken, which showed that adopting the Leopard 2 model would result in a greater combat potential of the German army than producing more Leopard 1A4 tanks or developing an improved version of the Leopard 1A4 with 105-120mm smoothbore gun, improved armor protection, a new fire control system and a 890 kilowatts, 1190 HP, or 1100 kilowatts, 1500 HP, engine. Various changes were applied to the Leopard 2 design before the series production started in 1979. The engine, transmission, and suspension were slightly modified and improved. The ballistic protection of the turret and hull was improved and weak spots were eliminated. The turret bustle containing the ready ammunition racks and the hydraulic system was separated from the crew compartment and fitted with blowout panels. The development of several new components was introduced to the Leopard 2 during the Leopard 2 AV development and after the US testing was completed. For the series version, the Hughes-designed laser rangefinder made with US common modules was chosen over the passive EMS-13 rangefinder. The EMS-13 system was considered to be the superior solution, but the Hughes system was cheaper and fully developed. The German company Krupp Atlas Elektronik acquired the license of the Hughes design and modified it to meet the needs of the German army. The modified rangefinder received the designation EMS-15. The installation of the US AGT 1500 turbine engine in the Leopard 2 was tested by Mark A. The AGT 1500 was from the United States and required deep modifications to the Leopard 2's chassis. However, driving tests at the WTD-41 revealed a number of drawbacks such as high fuel consumption and the poor performance of the transmission including the brakes. This project was thus terminated. In January 1977 Germany ordered a small pre-series of 3 hulls and 2 turrets which were delivered in 1978. These vehicles had increased armor protection on the front of the hull. One of the hulls was fitted with the earlier T-21 turret and was used by the German Army School in Munster for troop trials until 1979. In September 1977, 1,800 Leopard 2 tanks were ordered, to be produced in 5 batches. The main contractor was Krauss Mafia, but Maschinenbau KIEL, Mark A, was awarded a contract for producing 45% of the tanks. The first batch consisted of 380 tanks. The delivery of 6 tanks was scheduled for 1979, 114 for 1980, 180 for 1981, and 300 tanks each following year. The first series production tank was delivered on the 25th of October, 1979. By 1982, all of the first batch of 380 Leopard 2 tanks had been completed. 209 were built by Krauss Mafia, chassis No 10,001 to 10,210, and 171 by Mark A, chassis No 20,001 to 20,172. The first production tanks were fitted with the PZB-200 image intensifier due to production shortages of the new thermal night sight system, which was later retrofitted to the earlier models. After the original 5 batches, 3 further batches of Leopard 2 tanks were ordered, increasing the number of Leopard 2 tanks ordered by Germany to a total of 2,125. The 6th batch was ordered in June 1987 and consisted of 150 tanks, which were produced between January 1988 and May 1989. The seventh batch of 100 tanks was produced between May 1988 and April 1990. The last batch for the German Army totaling 75 tanks was produced from January 1991 to March 1992. During its production run during the Cold War, 16 Leopard 2 tanks were being produced per month. The vehicles were produced at a slower rate in the following decades. However, KMW still retained the capacity to return to such manufacturing levels should they need to be made again at a higher rate and supply chains are able to deliver sufficient materials. Further improvements, edit. While previous models only varied in detail, the Leopard 2A4 introduced a digital ballistic computer and an improved fire extinguishing system. Starting with the sixth batch, tanks were fitted with an improved armor array and new side skirts. In 1984, the German Military Procurement Agency stated a number of requirements for a future Leopard 2 upgrade. In 1989, the Kampfwerksteigerung, Combat Potential Improvement, program was initiated in Germany with the delivery of first prototypes. The official military requirements were published in March 1990. The KWS program was projected to consist of 3 stages. The first stage replaced the Rheinmetall 120mm L/44 gun barrel and the corresponding gun mount with a longer barreled and more lethal L/55 version. This stage was adopted in the form of 225 Leopard 2A6 tanks, starting in 2001 and lasting until 2005. Stage 2 focused on improvements of armor protection and survivability. It was adopted in the form of the Leopard 2A5, starting in 1995. The base armor of the tank was exchanged and additional armor modules were installed at the turret. The first batch of 225 Leopard 2 tanks was upgraded to Leopard 2A5 configuration between 1995 and 1998. A second batch of 125 followed from 1999 to 2002. The third stage was the planned replacement of the Leopard 2 turret by a new turret fitted with a 140mm, 5.5 NPZK tank gun, an autoloader, and the IFIS battlefield management system. The ballistic protection at the hull was to be improved. Originally a total requirement for 650 Leopard 2 tanks with KWS-3 was projected. It was never finalized, but the 140mm, 5.5 NPZK tank gun was tested on an older prototype. In 1995, it was decided to cancel due to changes in the political environment. The funds were redirected to the Neue Panzerplattformen, New Armored Platforms, project of the German Army. The Leopard 2A6M was developed with a kit providing enhanced protection against mines that can detonate below the hull, like mines with bending wire triggers, and explosively formed penetrator mines. The weight of the Leopard 2A6M is 62.5 tons. 61.5 long tons, 68.9 short tons. The latest version of the tank is the Leopard 2A7, which entered service in an initial batch of 20 tanks in 2014. Already before the first Leopard 2A7 tank was handed over to the German Army, plans for upgrades were made. At this time an extensive increase in combat value, while retaining the original mobility of the Leopard 2, was planned. The optics of the tank will also be improved. In April 2015, Weldum Suntech claimed that tungsten, wolfram, rounds used in Leopard 2 cannot penetrate the Russian T-90 or the modernized version of the T-80. They also stated that the German military will develop a new improved round, but it will be exclusively developed for the Leopard 2A7. In 2015, Rheinmetall disclosed that it was developing a new 130mm, 5.1 in, smoothbore gun for the Leopard 2 tank and its successor. This gun will offer a 50% increase in performance and penetration. Marketing for the new gun was slated to begin in 2016. Replacement, edit. The Leopard 2 first entered service in 1979, and its service life is anticipated to end around 2030. In May 2015, the German Ministry of Defense announced plans to